right, folks, good evening. My name is Albi Sacco. I'm the president of the Greater Hartford Young Democrats. Thank you. And on behalf of the Greater Hartford Young Democrats, Treasurer Eric Bergen and Vice President Bobby Bureau, we would like to welcome you, and I hope you will enjoy the debate. Eric?
All right, there's a couple things I want to cover. As Albie mentioned, my name's Eric Bergen. I'm the treasurer of the Greater Hartford Young Dems. I just want to reverberate. We've gotten a lot of thank yous around here. There's a lot of people that have been doing a lot of hard work to make this happen tonight, and we're really happy that we were able to do this and make it free to the public. So thanks to all the volunteers that made this happen. Thanks to all the candidates. Thanks to everyone. The Greater Hartford Young Democrats, we're an organization dedicated to serving the civic and political interests of young adults, age 18 to 35, who reside or work in the Greater Hartford region of the state. We seek to encourage our peers to get involved in the political process and become engaged in our government. We have monthly meetings on the first Thursday of every month where we plan civic and political events, such as this, year-round. We also assist in local charity and community events. I'm really happy we've been able to put this together, like I said, open and free to the public. Doing something like this takes a lot of work, and it's something that we'd like to be able to do again and make even better next time. That being said, that's going to take even more work. It also costs a little bit of money. This event is absolutely free. What I do ask, though, is if you can afford it, please on the way out make a contribution to the Greater Hartford Young Democrats so we can continue to grow and improve in the work we do. We're going to have someone at the door, and they'll be taking contributions. And if you think that at the end of the day that this event was worth $5 for you to come here tonight, or $10 or $50, whatever it's worth to you, your contribution will make a difference in making sure that we can do things like this moving forward in the future. If you'd like to get involved, we'd love to have more people at our meetings. Come see Albie or Bobby or myself sometime after tonight's debate. We'll get your info and get you on the list and make sure that you're at our next meeting. If you didn't see it on the way in, we have a sign-in sheet at the door, too, if you'd like more information about us. Now, I'd like to introduce and pay gratitude to our moderator tonight. She's a two-time Emmy Award-winning journalist, host of Eyewitness News at noon on WFSB, that's Channel 3 on the dial, co-host of Better Connecticut, recent author of a memoir called Finding Dad, From Love Child to Daughter, and she's also a longtime Hartford resident. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our moderator, Kara Sumner.
Good evening, everyone, and it is my honor as a longtime Hartford resident and as a journalist to be here. I think all of you showing up tonight shows a lot of care for our capital city, and it's exciting to have 5 people up here debating tonight. I can remember when I came as a Cub reporter 15 years ago reporting on should we have a charter to get a strong mayor. Clearly something's changed. So a lot of people interested, and that can only be good for our capital city. So thank you to the Greater Hartford Young Democrats for doing this, and I'm sure it won't be the last debate, as there's still quite a few months to go before the primary. I'm going to begin by just reading the rules so we can refresh our candidates, and also so that you in the audience will understand. For those of you who are filling in, go ahead, quietly take a seat, and we are expected to fill all of these seats. I can see a few up here if you want to squeeze in or stand in the back. These are the rules. Each candidate will give a 1-minute opening statement. I will ask the questions for the candidates to answer. Each candidate will get a chance to answer every question. They'll give a 1-minute answer to each question. And then you will all get 30 seconds for rebuttal. Each candidate will then be given 1 minute for a closing statement, and we expect time to allow. We're saving a little time for what's always fun in a debate, just a little rapid fire at the end. And it's important that we have this room only until 7 o'clock, so it's imperative that the rules and time limits are strictly enforced. You'll see over here, raise your hand, guys, who have timing. They're going to raise the orange marker over here. For you watching, that means there's 10 seconds left. When the orange marker goes down, your time is up, and it's my job to make sure that we don't go over. So I may have to interrupt. So everyone take your seats, and let's begin. We are going to begin with the incumbent candidate, Mayor Pedro Segarra, and we'll go in that order from Mr. Segarra to Mr. Bronin and down the line here, everyone getting 1 minute for their opening statements, and you may begin.
Good evening, everyone. First, I want to thank the Young Democrats for hosting this event. I want to thank my colleagues who are running for office. I want to thank all of you for being here and those who are watching on TV. My name is Pedro Segarra. I came to Hartford 41 years ago, approximately, and since that time, I have been working very hard on many community issues, organizations, and different movements. It's been a pleasure to have been in the city for 41 years. It's a city that I have grown and studied in. I went to Capital Community College, University of Hartford, the University of Connecticut Graduate School of Social Work and Law, all located in this area. For 41 years, I have struggled, and I've wanted to see nothing but to see our community grow and prosper. For the last 5 years, I've been the mayor, and during those five years, I think I've worked very hard to accomplish some amazing things along with others. Number one, decrease in crime, significantly increased graduation rates, and unprecedented economic development in the city. I want an opportunity to continue to work alongside with you and others as a team builder, as a collaborator, to see the city continue to move in a good and prosperous forward direction. Thank you.
Mr. Bronin.
Thank you very much, Kara, and thank you to the Young Democrats. I'm Luke Bronin. My wife, Sarah, and I made Hartford our home just about 10 years ago for so many reasons. This is a city with incredible cultural diversity, with great food, great arts, beautiful parks, incredible library. But if we want to be the great city that we should be, we also have to be a city where you can raise children knowing that they can go to a good school near home no matter how they do in the lottery, and where they can grow up and they can find a job and get ahead right here in Hartford, and where they can build a life and build a family knowing that they've got a city government that's going to listen and be responsive and follow through no matter where you live in the city, and that spends at least as much time trying to combat blight in your neighborhood as it does trying to build a baseball park downtown. That's the kind of Hartford that I want my 3 kids to grow up in. And it can happen, but it's going to take hands-on leadership that's willing to be held accountable and hold people accountable. I've learned my leadership lessons in the Obama administration, in the governor's office, in the military. I know how to make things happen in government. That's what I love to do, and I want to have the chance to do it with you. Thank you.
Mr. Cruz.
Thank you. Good afternoon to everyone, Young Democrats. First and foremost, being a grandson of a Puerto Rican grandmother who came here in the 1960s, did not know the language, 5 kids, single mother, I feel so proud and privileged to be able to serve this city. My name is Joel Cruz. I was born and raised in the city. I didn't come to the city. I was born here. This is a place where I played. This is a place where I went to school from elementary school all the way to high school. The streets that I walk are the same streets where I got to ride my bike, I got to rollerblade, and I continue to enjoy with my 2 daughters and my wife. I am a pastor. I'm a council member. I've been in the council for 3 years. I serve on different boards, and this is a city I love. The reason I'm running. Thank you.
Mr. Gale. Mr. Gale, yes.
Thank you, Kara. Fellow candidates, concerned citizens, my name is John Gale. I was born, raised, and educated here in Hartford, and so were my 4 children. Soon, my grandchildren will walk these streets, play in our parks, and learn in our schools. I built my law practice here, and I dedicated my career to improving Hartford, to preserving our diverse communities, and to helping families, workers, and businesses in tough times. Hartford is a part of my family, and right now it needs our help. To fix it, it needs new leadership that knows Hartford and a vision for what we can become. And that will take us all working together to get City Hall back on track. I'm made in Hartford. I've worked my entire life to make this city better, and I'm running so that this city has the opportunity with new vision and new energy to provide more opportunities, and the city government works to improve people's lives and create jobs. I'm John Gale, and I'm asking for your vote.
Mr. Killian.
I'm Bob Killian, and I'm 68 years old. You're nice to not notice that I'm the oldest person at the table. I love Hartford. I've lived here all my life. My father and grandfather on both sides were here. My mother, her family, for 3 generations. The only thing that hasn't been said today, and I don't think there's anything that's said that I disagree with, the only thing that hasn't been said is that Hartford is flat-busted broke. And government has been making bad decisions for too many years because they don't understand what Hartford is. It's 125,000 people, about 2,000 of them live in our wonderful downtown. 123,000 of them live elsewhere. And we have been woefully inadequate in addressing the needs of the overwhelming majority of our town, and I want to change that.
All right, just a note for our audience, those are the opening statements. I have been asked to remind everyone that the rules are we can't have any audience participation in this debate in order to make sure we get through all the questions, so we're going to ask everyone to please hold your applause till the end of the debate. I know that makes it a little less fun, but we need to do that to get through what we need to do. So we're going to begin now with the questions, and the first question will go to Mr. Segarra, and then we'll go down the way just as we did, and then there'll be a rebuttal. According to the Department of Labor, unemployment in the city of Hartford stands at 11.5%. What will you do to bring in more jobs to the city?
The Department of Labor says 11%, but unfortunately in some of our neighborhoods, it's much higher. Our city has been mired in poverty cyclically because of the inability of this city to change the structure of this state in terms of how the city is treated. We're second richest metro area in the world, and it's unfortunate that we're in this situation. I will continue to do what I've been doing. Investments in education, $250 million that have been invested to rebuild our schools, to increase the graduation rates, which have gone up during the time that I've been in service from 20% to 71%. Continue to promote economic development, bringing projects such as Dono, $350 million investment. Continuing hard to work with the federal government to have zones such as North Hartford be developed into enterprise promise zones. Continue to work hard to do basically what we've been doing, to motivate people, to lift their spirits, to believe in Hartford again. Our city is changing, and it has been changing because of a lot of hard work that has been done, because of partnerships that have been made. Continue to promote job growth through strategic investments in our infrastructure, and make sure that the investments that we make in our schools and our communities give a benefit back to our communities. We will soon be having a community benefits policy so that it's not outsiders that are taking the full advantage of these opportunities, but the very same people from our neighborhoods which need, deserve, and have been waiting for a better future. Those are the things that I would do.
All right, we ask for no applause, but we'll continue the answers to the question.
The other thing is to continue to work to bring down the mill rate. In 5 years that I've been in office,
so your time is up. I'm sorry. I meant Mr. Bronin. Yeah. Mr. Bronin may answer. You have 1 minute.
Thank you, Kara. The unemployment is not 11.5%. It's in the 20s or far higher in some of our neighborhoods. And what we have to do is have a chief executive of the city that's focused more than anything else on bringing jobs in. You need to build and maintain relationships with employers and make the pitch, what would it take to get you to Hartford? And show them that they've got somebody on the other end of the line that's going to work with them. A few weeks ago, United Technologies, which have been headquartered here for decades, pulled up stakes. And it's not just the biggest companies. This morning I was talking to a business owner on Franklin Avenue who had been here for 50 years with his 20 employees and just decided that he's going to leave town because he hasn't found the partnership here. We've got to do everything we can aggressively to reach out to businesses. And at the same time, we need to make sure that we're partnering with those businesses to help them navigate the incentives that are available from the state. You know, over the last 4 years, tens of thousands of jobs have been created in this state. We're not where near we need to be, but there are jobs being created, and far too few of them are happening in Hartford. We need to make sure that we're taking advantage of the Small Business Express program, of First Five, of the money that the state has available to remediate the old factory buildings that we've got and try to bring employers back into Hartford. It takes a mayor who's willing to go out every single day and get on the phone or knock on doors and say, what would it take to get you to Hartford?
Mr. Cruz.
You know, I've heard a lot of people talk about generating employment, and one thing that I don't hear anyone talk about is our ex-offenders. We have a lot of ex-offenders in our city. And so how do we reach out to our ex-offenders? And what I want to bring is the idea of helping our small businesses that are really the heart of the city, not just our big businesses that are in downtown Hartford, but the businesses on Albany Avenue and Main Street and up north, and on Park Street and on Weathersfield and on Franklin Avenue, and really connecting them with providing incentives that will help our ex-offenders. Perhaps these small businesses can actually provide jobs for our ex-offenders, and the city can provide some incentives, some tax incentives with the small businesses. So as they get ex-offenders, we also give them tax breaks and help our small businesses out. You know, we live in a city where 9% of our adults have a 4-year degree or more. We need to work on that. If we want businesses to come into the city, we got to work on our education.
Mr. Gale.
Thank you. You know, for 38 years, I've been a small businessman. I've made payroll every week. I understand what small business is all about. And small business generates 65% of all new jobs. Hartford can do a much better job of creating small business. We had a program here called the iConnect program. Good idea, bad execution. I would intend to take that program and expand it down our corridors and help generate new small businesses throughout every artery in Hartford: Albany Avenue, North Main Street, Weathersfield Avenue, Franklin Avenue. But besides small business, the city of Hartford spends a lot of money every year, as does the other entities with which it works, like the MDC. Between the city and the MDC, we have a lot of projects out there. We've got a stadium, we've got downtown North coming development, and the MDC's got a sewer separation project. When I look out my door, walk around my block every week, I see Ludlow, Massachusetts trucks tearing up my streets. I don't understand why the city of Hartford hasn't partnered with the MDC to make sure that the MDC has a local hires initiative, that those jobs are going to people who live in the city of Hartford.
Mr. Killian.
It's tough being last.
Don't worry, the order will change. We're going to keep rotating
but it's
down.
Tough being last, and it's tough being the guy that has to throw the buckets of cold water on things. We're not going to buy our way out of this problem with our city dollars. If we're going to get out of this problem, we have to make Hartford hospitable to people who want to move here and live here in their homes and people who want to do business here. And we're not hospitable to them now. We have a tax rate, 74 mills, that's 20 mills higher than the next closest city. And it's about 30 mills higher than any other town outside of the major cities. We're not going to win the battle for the hearts and minds and pocketbooks of businessmen or people who are coming here unless they know that we're going to be hospitable to them. We've got to do that by changing the way we do business, by making sure that we put to proper use the funds that we get. The state pays 51 cents out of every dollar we spend. We don't spend it very wisely. And we have to do those things and then move toward the marketplace, creating the new excitement. Take advantage of the programs, do everything we can, but get back to basics. Recognize that we have to do something about what we look like to somebody who's thinking about coming here.
Okay, now you each get a 30-second rebuttal. We begin with Mr. Segarra.
I'm glad Killian brought up the issue of the mill rates. When I became mayor 5 years ago, the mill rate was at about the same that it is now. We have stabilized the mill rate. Even though the 5 years preceding, the line was like this, we flattened it out and we stabilized the mill rate. You know, this is really related to an issue with the state, where the state has enabled a system to go into play where 52% of our grant list is tax exempt. And I'm glad that finally our state legislature, based on the work that we've been doing, is considering Senate Bill number 1 to give us more resources from that pilot. We have things such as Swift, Coltsville, a national park, Look around you. All you need to do is look around Hartford to see the construction and the work that's going into Hartford, and you would see that it's a totally different picture from 5 years ago. Now that the city is being built up, now you have people coming to our city, pretend to take control of our city. My question again is, 5 years ago, when things were where they were, where was everybody? Because I didn't see this much competition, although I take credit for creating a climate where this could happen. This climate is a climate that I've helped to develop because whoever expresses opposition, in my term, doesn't get their heads chopped off.
Thank you, Mr. Segar. Mr. Bronin, your 30-second rebuttal.
Thank you. I've never heard anyone take credit for so much opposition, but it's a deft move. I admire it. About a month ago, Mayor, you sent out a fundraising letter that said progress is visible on every corner of our city. And then you named 3 corners downtown. And then you said, and there's a $350 million investment coming to the north end of Hartford in downtown North. I may not have been here for 41 years, but I know that downtown North is not North Hartford. And if you look at Albany and Woodland or Park and Main or countless other corners around our city, progress is not visible on every corner of our city.
Mr. Cruz.
Thank you. Look, how many Hartford folks are here? Hartford residents? Most of the room. I asked that question because we keep talking about we want to bring people in, we want to bring people in, we want to bring people in. We have the people in our own city. We can support our city. We can support our businesses. So stop trying to make Hartford look good for others when we have people in our own city that can make this city look good. The second piece that I will mention about this entire debate is when we start blaming the state, we don't get anywhere. It's not just the state about this mill rate. It's the state and us, and we work together and work together.
Mr. Gale.
Thank you. I would just like to follow up on the city, using the city as a job creator for people who live in Hartford. As Councilman Cruz said, I'm looking to employ people who are already here in Hartford who are unemployed. And 2 of the disabilities that our citizens have had are getting jobs in the fire department and the police department. We've been woefully poor at having our police and fire department look like our population. And we need to change those disabilities so every kid in Hartford has the opportunity to get in and serve in public safety.
Thank you. Mr. Killian.
I'm going to be nice this time. I do want to remind the mayor that when he started as mayor, I was in about my 25th year as judge of probate for the District of Hartford, where I worked with people who had problems, where I worked with children who were having issues, where I worked with grandparents who were struggling to get the money together to try to help raise their grandkids in many cases. So I'm not exactly a newcomer mayor to public service or this city.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to begin with the second question, and it will begin with Mr. Bronin, and then we will move down in the same order we've been going, so that way everyone will get a chance to answer a question first. The second question, again, please hold your applause. You each get 1 minute to answer it, and the rebuttal as we just did. The Hartford Public School System has experienced a significant increase in graduation rates recently. There has been progress, clearly, but the system still has its share of problems. As mayor, what steps will you take to improve the school system for Hartford residents? Mr. Bronin.
Number 1 is do no harm. The budget that's been proposed this year would result in laying off dozens of teachers, in addition to guidance counselors, social workers in our schools, the very people who are responsible for teaching our kids. I think our priority's in the wrong place. I don't think we should call it a no layoff budget when our teachers are being laid off. So first, do no harm. But secondly, we're overdue for having an honest conversation about what's the future of education in Hartford. Over the last 10 years, we've built dozens of magnet schools, and those have created a lot of opportunities. My son's in one of them. But we have to ask ourselves whether we can continue to build shiny new buildings with only one measure of success, which is how many children of one color are sitting next to how many children of another color. We need to get back in the business of trying to deliver a quality education to every child in Hartford, no matter how the lottery turns out and no matter where they live. And I think that starts with getting to the chef negotiating table and having an open, honest serious discussion so that Hartford can take control of our education future again and talk honestly about the two-tiered system that we've got.
I have to interrupt your time. Thank you. All right, Mr. Cruz.
Thank you. You know, I look at our Board of Education. The mayor has 5 appointments. If you ask me how many of those are current parents of children in the school system right now, 0. 0 parents in the Board of Education. That does not represent the voice of the parents. And when you look out there we have Renzulli parents, and we have parents from Rawson complaining because their voice is not being heard. The first thing I would do as mayor is to make sure the parents have a voice at the table. I'm a father. I have 2 daughters, both in the school system, a 16-year-old and a 5-year-old. And one thing that I appreciate is when I'm given the voice for my children's education. That is super important. We need to make sure that our parents' voice is being heard. The second thing is we must maximize opportunities for our students. Prepare them for college, but for career as well. Make it a two-way approach. Maximizing that by exposing them to the different companies and the different jobs that are here in the city.
Mr. Gale.
You know, my father was a teacher. I have 5 sisters. 4 of them are teachers. One of them teaches here in Hartford. She's the co-founder of the Breakthrough Magnet School. My wife works in the Hartford school system, and as I mentioned to you at the beginning, I sent 4 children to the Hartford school system starting in 1985. I'm also a graduate of Hartford Public High School, and I'm the head of the Alumni Association for Hartford Public High School, and in another 3 weeks, we're going to give out $60,000 worth of scholarships to graduates there. I've spent most of the last 30 years being involved with the Hartford Public Schools. I know the Hartford Public Schools, and I want to work with them. There are problems that need fixing. The parents from Renzulli outside, as you walked in here, are symptomatic of one of those problems. As Councilman Cruz, I give him credit a second time, said, we need to keep the parents involved in the process at all times. But more importantly, we need to focus on our district schools. Those are the schools that have been left behind in all the changes that have been wrought over the last 10 years. The district schools have to have the same amount of money spent on them as there is spent on every kid in a magnet school.
Mr. Killian.
I thought Luke Broden spoke eloquently about the needs for some change in the system, and I endorse the things that he said, but not him. I have 2 daughters. Both are teachers. One in Chicago. She teaches in a predominantly Mexican school, and one here in Avon. And I am very concerned that we take steps forward, and I think we have, Mayor, and I think a lot of those steps forwards have been on your watch, basically with state money. And then we take steps backwards. And I think the Renzulli School and the Opportunity High School, these are things that worry me, that where we have successful institutions, please, let's not lose them. Let's let them continue to succeed.
Thank you. As we've gotten some new visitors, I want to remind everyone we're doing one question, and hold your applause to the end. There are about 9 seats I can see sprinkled up here if anyone wants to try and take one. We're going to begin with the next question.
Excuse me.
Can you repeat it?
I need...
The mayor.
Oh, the mayor. Never mind, because we're going down this aisle. Sorry, Mr. Mayor. So let me begin the question. The Hartford Public School System has experienced a significant increase in graduation rates lately. There's been progress, as we said. What will you do in order to improve the school system for Hartford residents? I apologize, I forgot we skipped one down. Your turn.
Well, I think that we definitely need to work harder to, again, education and the right to free public education is a matter of state constitutional law, and I believe that the state should assume more responsibility for funding our schools in a way that is more equitable, so the children in Hartford has the same opportunity as children in the southern part of the state. We continue to do the same things that we've been doing. I've been working very hard on early education programs. The number of children in early education programs in the city has increased dramatically. We continue to support things like the 3rd grade reading promise, because if kids learn to read by the 3rd grade, they will be more likely to succeed. You support them during their middle years. 8th grade, 9th grade, the years that kids tend to drop out of school because of situations in the family and in the neighborhood. We need to be mindful of that. And we prepare them to go to college. But the biggest investment that we need to make is into support education. With a limited budget that we have, we've always complied with our funding requirements for the education, and we have done exceedingly well to bring in resources from the federal government in order to supplement our efforts. Education is a priority. We need to work hard to make sure that the unintended consequences of CHEF do not continue to victimize our students. It is sinful for seats to remain empty when there are children in our neighborhoods that can take them, and they're reserved for others from the outside.
Okay, it is now time for the rebuttal. And we will go in the same order as we just did. So you have a chance for a 30-second rebuttal for each candidate. Mr. Bronin?
To continue where I started, neighborhood schools face just a whole different set of challenges than the magnets do. They've got a concentration of kids with special education needs. They've got a concentration of kids who are English language learners. They bear the full burden of mid-year transfers, including, by the way, nearly 2,000 students who transfer back out of open choice school seats after the other districts have gotten the money and then come back to neighborhood schools in Hartford. Those are the kinds of issues we need to raise at that negotiating table and say it's just not right. Because when the schools that are 95 or 99% minority students are getting the least attention, it's a perversion of what CHEF was meant to do.
Mr. Cruz?
Thank you. You know, I keep hearing us kind of throwing the football to the state, and I do agree that the state plays a big role in our education for the city of Hartford, but we also must take responsibility. What we don't do well is take responsibility of the importance of us sitting at the table, collaborating, uniting with our state delegation, and making sure that our education is taken care of.
Thank you. Mr. Gale?
Well, I was happy to hear the mayor speak of supporting our schools, but I was very unhappy earlier this year to hear about a Montessori program that was very successful that was about to leave the city of Hartford. This seems to me to be unacceptable, to take a good program and then to send it outside of town. The second thing is that the buildings we haven't mentioned. We've got some sick buildings here in Hartford in our school system, and those need attention at this time. Thank you.
It's about money. It's about money. I hate to keep saying that, but it's the fact. And we don't have any. And the only place we're going to get it is from other government sources, the state most specifically. And we have to look at the situation we're in, which is an historic inevitability. We were destined to be exactly where we are today, and I'll talk about that a little later, hopefully.
Mr. Segarra?
29% 6 years ago, 71% graduation rates now. Look at the schools, South End, North End, West End, all around the city. We have had a movement to rebuild our schools. But again, the state cannot back off its responsibility. I should not have to be basically in a fight with the Office of the Governor's Council over trying to remedy the unintended consequences of CHEF. It is unfair for us to have empty schools, empty seats in magnet schools that can be utilized by our students. We need to work to get rid of those.
Thank you. Okay, it is time for question number 3. And this question will be directed first at Mr. Cruz, and we will continue in this order down. The question is, you've all followed the controversy surrounding the home on Scarborough Street, where several unrelated people appear to be living in violation of current zoning laws. In your opinion, should zoning laws remain intact, or should they be changed? And if so, to what?
Should be changed immediately. Yes.
All right, we can't have any comments from the peanut gallery, but begin, Mr. Cruz.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Cruz. You have 1 minute.
All right. Thank you. You know, our zoning laws are very antiquated. This is a very old city. Just like our taxes are very antiquated as well. That's why we don't know, we can't find ways to generate money because we're still using old ways. And I think it's important that we sit down and we really talk about our zoning. Again, this is about collaboration. This is about really coming together, coming to the table and having conversations about what will work for our neighbors, what will work for our homes, one home at a time, really tackling the real issues, which is for that family. You know, I read about it everywhere, and it's sad that we have to see the family having to move because of a zoning law. When we have laws in the city right now that some of our own employees can't even follow. So how are we going to ask somebody else to follow a law when we can't even follow our own?
Mr. Gale, please hold your applause to the end.
So everyone understands the issue involves 4 families that moved into one house on Scarborough Street. If I'm not mistaken, there's 3 teachers in that of those families and 3 children and 1 school principal. And their neighbors, the other residents on Scarborough Street, are very upset because this violates city zoning. Well, I think that city zoning needs to evolve as our community has evolved, and the definition of family needs to evolve as our community has evolved. And so I've asked that everyone sit down at the table and try to work together and try to come up with a solution. I believe that everybody on both sides of this issue are very good people. And I believe, especially as a lawyer and as a draftsman, that we can sit down and that we can come up with a solution that provides all of the residents of Scarborough with a comfort level that their quality of life is not going to be deteriorated at all while leaving the families at Scarborough in their home.
Thank you. Mr. Killian.
I wish the people on Scarborough Street were rotten, nasty people, but they're not. They seem like great people. They seem like good people with a common purpose of addressing the ridiculous cost of housing in the year 2015. Having said that, I don't know, and as a lawyer and as a judge for 31 years, I am very skeptical about whether you can draw an ordinance that safeguards everybody in this city so that every house can't end up being a boarding house. And that concerns me. And I hope we can. We're lucky. We got smart people. I mean, Sarah Bronin is chairman of our zoning commission, and she's taken a shot at it that is a good beginning. But I don't think it's there yet, and we've got to protect housing. We protect housing values, we make Hartford a more desirable place to live. That's true about many people in one house, and that's true about people who aren't taking care of their houses.
Mr. Segarra.
I know most of the members of it, but I know several members of this family. They're wonderful and fine individuals who contribute a lot to our community in the arts, in education, in different areas. This issue is an issue that is a legal issue or a zoning issue. From a zoning perspective, we need to perhaps follow a process in updating our code, which we are doing with form-based zoning and other adaptations and modernizations to our code. We need to address the issue of what constitutes a family. That is a process. You engage the community, you have conversations. The family's already living there, so it's turned into a legal issue because the process has not been amended to allow that sort of use. The courts need to make a decision, and in that decision, I'm just hopeful that Hartford doesn't get treated differently so that we wipe out our one family market and then all the other surrounding neighborhoods still continue to have different classes of housing and then we're basically forced out of the market. So it's a very delicate issue. My heart goes out to this family because all they want is the same thing that many other people in the West End and other communities live. Decent place to live.
Thank you, Mr.
They can feel at home.
Mr. Bronin.
I think it was a tragic thing that this issue became as divisive as it did. You know, everybody involved loves the city of Hartford. I happen to think that there is a way to sit down at the table and have a conversation where we try to update the zoning code in a way that does take into account, you know, evolution of definitions of family, but doesn't pose any real threat to the integrity of a single-family zone or any other residential zone. And as Bob Killian mentioned, my wife made an attempt at that, but I think we're going to have to have that conversation. But I do want to say, I also think it's important that we have a broader conversation about the enforcement of zoning rules in the city. You know, we're talking about one house on one street, but all over the city there are buildings with bed bug issues. There are buildings that aren't being you know, inspected for fire safety. There are, you know, car dealerships with the cars spilling out onto the roads. There's all kinds of enforcement issues that I wish the city would pursue with as much vigor as it pursued an enforcement action against that particular family.
Okay, now we get our 30-second rebuttals. Please hold your applause. Please hold your applause. And we begin the rebuttals with the same person that began the question, Mr. Cruz.
Thank you. Again, I just want to reiterate that I find it bonkers to be able to see that we spend so many resources and so much energy on one family when there's so many other things that are a lot more important in this city. But we wasting all our energy and our resources on one place when there's so much more that could be done, and our resources and our energy could be shifted towards that.
Mr. Gale.
I heard the mayor sound very sympathetic to the family in this issue and hope for a good outcome on the lawsuits. But indeed, there's been no effort made to try to bring the two lawsuits. There are two lawsuits pending, mind you, one in federal court and one in state court. This is a lot of resources being spent on one single issue, and yet I don't hear anybody calling for mediation or to bring parties to the table. That's what I would do. Let's stop the foolishness.
Mr. Killian?
It's not one family on one street. It's a bunch of families that are concerned about their street. I hope we can bring them to the table. That's leadership. That's something we can do. But folks, this is not the city of Hartford against one group of people in one house. It's the city of Hartford that is petitioned by a lot of people to make change, a law that may not be as flexible as it should be, and we've got to do something about it calmly and without making one side victims and the other side the victimizer.
Mr. Segarra.
I think Killian summarized it very well. I'm at the best disposition for mediation, bringing parties together. Most of what's been accomplished in this city has been accomplished through collaboration and working together. There's no way for me to take a position in favor of the family without upsetting many families around this. I think that we need to work prospectively to engage the community in a process of bringing good definition to our code, but doing it in balance with other communities so, again, we're not victimized and adopting our laws in the city to meet to our disadvantage as against other communities.
Mr. Bronin?
I think if the rebuttal starts, or is this?
You had your rebuttal.
You know, Mayor,
He got it.
I'm
Okay.
sorry,
I'm sorry.
Confused about the order here.
It would have been easier to stay in one order, but since we're going to try and change the question, so
Okay,
all right. So let me.
I apologize.
My apologies there. As
so-
I'm listening, I'm getting so enthralled in all that you're saying, I'm losing track with it. So let me begin with the question. The next question.
Can I do a quick rebuttal?
You had your. That was your rebuttal.
No, I didn't, because I was the last one to go on the first question. I was just making sure I wasn't going twice, but now I know I haven't. let me just.
That's what I was giving your turn for, was to the rebuttal. I'm sorry, I thought you were questioning
That's
that.
all right.
Okay.
I'll be very brief. Mayor, you are the mayor, and so you are in the position to try to mediate and to try to bring the parties together. That's what leadership is. You're right. You're in a tough position because there are people on both sides of the issue, but that's when leadership is needed most.
Yes. Okay, so we're going to begin. The next question will be with Mr. Gale, and we're going to go this way, and then you'll begin the rebuttals, and we'll continue and end with Mr. Cruz. So the question number 4 has to do with crime. Do you think being in Hartford, do you think there is enough being done to combat crime? And more specifically, what should the city's focus be to keep neighborhoods safe? Mr. Gale, 1 minute.
Thank you. One of the things that Hartford could do a much better job with is community policing. We have CSO officers, these are community service officers, who are at least in theory assigned to every neighborhood. But I'm not sure that we see them often enough, and I'm not sure that within the city of Hartford they have the commitment that's necessary. What we need is a police force where every police officer is an ambassador, and where every police officer is assigned to a particular part of town over and over, year in and year out, so they get to know that part of town. I'd like to see our community service officers assigned for a minimum of 5 years to their districts, and I'd like to see patrol officers assigned for a minimum of 5 years to their districts, so they can get to know people in the districts, and people in the districts get to know them. This is how you start to build trust between your police department and your community, and this is how you get crime to go down.
Mr. Killian.
I'd love to be mayor of Hartford, but you couldn't pay me enough money to be a cop in Hartford. That's a tough job. I don't know, frankly, whether the crime problem in Hartford generally is a significant issue, but it certainly is an issue in the areas of the city where poverty is a significant issue. They go hand in glove. And everything we've talked about, all of us tonight, about improving the economic situation in Hartford is going to have an amazing impact on crime. Having said that, I love community service officers. I think they're great. I think we've started a program. I think the Hartford cops have got to look at some things. You know, they may not like it, but I think we got to get the cameras. And I think that we've got to be aware that there are changes in this nation in how communities are relating to their police, and we got to be ahead of that curve.
Mr. Segarra.
I believe that I brought in a very good person, Chief Rovella. We've had some excellent results, 30% decrease in violent crimes in our city, crime being the lowest that it's been in decades. But it doesn't stop there because crime still is unacceptable, and we're working very hard to that. We do the best that we can with the resources that we have. And with the resources that we have to ensure that we provide sufficient training for our police officers, that we continue to engage our communities and our faith-based communities because they have been very helpful in terms of working with them, and we need to continue to increase those efforts. 53% decrease in homicides in the North End in the last 3 to 4 years. That's significant. That's significant. And I think that we need to continue to engage the community. We need to create a pipeline, which we're doing with the Public Safety Academy, creating an academy, recruiting kids from our neighborhoods, from our schools, so that we can diversify our police force, continue to train them. And yes, I believe and support the use of body cameras as a way to protect both sides of the policing.
Mr. Bronin.
There has been a drop in crime, and we should be thankful for that. And it's a drop that we've seen statewide and nationwide, and hopefully we can keep that trend going. It does take recommitting to community policing and having enough cops who are able to be out on the street. I think that's all the more powerful if more of our cops lived in Hartford. So I would like to see us put incentives on the table, like some communities have done, to try to make it easier for our cops and our firefighters and our teachers to get them some mortgage assistance or incentivize living in Hartford. There are communities that have done that very successfully. But ultimately, the best anti-crime effort is jobs. It's a jobs program. And I want to come back to something Joel Cruz said. Thousands of our residents are permanently barred from economic opportunity because of a mistake in their past. We need to give people a second chance. And I thought, before I left the governor's office, I helped draft the Second Chance Society bill. I think we ought to all be fighting hard for that right now as it makes its way through the legislature. It matters to Hartford for economic development, for opportunity, and to combat crime.
Thank you. Now we begin with the rebuttals. You each get 30 seconds. Mr. Gale.
He gets a full
Mr.
minute.
Cruz, I'm sorry. Going down. Apologize.
Thank you. In 2007, very sadly, I lost my best friend of 15 years right on the street, right in front of the home where I grew up. Gunshot to the head. 3 kids, a wife. So crime is something that hits me in the heart. Although I appreciate and respect our police officers, crime is more than just police officers. We can put 1 million cops in the street, and it just doesn't cut it. This is about us, again, really reaching out to our ex-offenders, which I actually like the name returning citizens, because this X thing just doesn't help them. I would love to see our Banda box in the city be expanded and not just have it as a feel-good thing, but really expand it and give our ex-offenders the opportunity to really work for the city rather than just saying, oh, I'm not going to ask you, but the minute I find out, I'm letting you go.
Now we're going to begin the rebuttals. We begin with Mr. Gale. You each get 30 seconds.
You know, I like to say I leave no stone unturned. I certainly agree that we need more jobs in Hartford, But let's stay with the police force for a minute. There's other things that the police force can do for us that will help reduce crime. Some of that is enforcing these small quality of life issues. We all know that we've got noise pollution in Hartford. You've got these little motorbikes running up and down now that it's getting warmer. We've got traffic issues that aren't enforced. We've got litter. Let's get our police officers working for us, tackling some of these little problems that'll make everybody's life a little bit better and everybody behaves better.
Mr. Killian.
I'm glad to hear such unanimity on an important issue.
Mr. Segarra.
We do have currently several incentives to get our police officers to live in the city. I think that as we continue to grow and expand entertainment and living options in our city and create more housing in areas that are attractive for our employees, that we will continue to increase the numbers. We have had success with our Ban the Box program. I think if you look statistically at the number of persons that have been hired who have benefited from Ban the Box, you would see that there is some growth there. But again, I think that the best opportunity to really improve police, community relations, and to also provide opportunity is to have our own kids be the ones that get trained early on to create a pipeline into the police department.
Mr. Bronin.
Ban the Box is really important, and it's important as much as anything to send a message to private employers that you shouldn't hold someone's past against them if it's not relevant to the job. Mayor, your rhetoric is right, but last year you hired a senior official in your administration, and then when it turned out that that person had a criminal record, you let him go. That undermines the message, because the message is that the past shouldn't be held against you.
Thank you. Mr. Cruz.
Thank you. You know, I'm very careful because I don't want to be negative. This is not about being negative all the time. But when we talk about drop crime, yes, it's true. The crime did drop, but it dropped everywhere else. So I don't know. I want to ask a question. If it dropped everyone else, does that mean everywhere else? Does that mean that every mayor in this country is a good mayor?
I'm going to take one moment to defer to our Greater Hartford Young Democrats. I'm aware that we do have 10 minutes left in this room, so we can begin a short sequence of rapid fire and then the closing arguments. Yes? Okay. So the rapid fire is just that. It's rapid. I'm going to ask you one question, and you need to answer me quickly in a sentence. And Mr. Killian, you get to go first. It ended
this
with...
one I win?
And the first question is, why do you want to be mayor?
Because Hartford's in crisis, and I demonstrated 31 years ago when I took the probate court over and it was in crisis that I know how to deal with governmental crises.
Mr. Segarra.
I want to continue the momentum that we're having. There's a lot to be done, but I think that I've clearly shown that in the time that I've been mayor that I can get things done. We just need to do more, and I'm ready. I'm still energetic, and I've learned quite a bit. There's a learning job to this curve. We'll start the training process again. I'm fully trained. I'm willing to move forward.
Mr. Bronin, try to keep it to one sentence.
Because the position of mayor of Hartford is no longer a ceremonial position, and if we're going to achieve what we need to achieve in this city, we need a mayor who's willing to get under the hood and to hold people accountable and to be held accountable and to manage the city of Hartford.
Mr. Cruz.
Our residents in our city deserve a person with integrity, a person with true leadership, a person with true accountability, not just for the people they supervise, but also for themselves. You got to be accountable to yourself. You also got to be able to say when you make a mistake and you own for it.
Mr. Gale.
This is a great opportunity for urban America, but a city can only take advantage of it if it has a functioning government. So it's important to get in and make our government work for us.
One other question before we begin your closing arguments. And this one will begin with Mr. Segarra, and you get one word to describe Hartford.
One word.
Give us one word to describe the city of Hartford.
Oh, God. Oh, one word, you're killing me. Forward.
Mr. Bronin.
Not there yet.
Not one
That
word.
was hyphenated.
He doesn't get two chances.
Hold the applause. Mr. Cruz, do you have one word?
Passionate.
Mr. Gale.
Beautiful.
Mr. Killian.
Challenged.
And now we will begin our closing arguments. Since Mr. Killian didn't get to begin with a question, would it be okay to give Mr. Killian the closing argument first? Okay. So we'll begin this way. In the interest of time, we were able to not get through quite as many questions as we would love, but I know we'll have more debate. So, Mr. Killian, you get 1 minute for your closing response.
Hartford's got a lot of challenges ahead of it. It's got a lot of problems, and it hasn't done as well in managing its issues in the last 4 or 5 years. The good news is there's 250 people in this room 5 months before an election, a primary election. I thank you for that.
Mr. Gale.
Like so many of your families, Hartford gave my family a second chance at a good life when my father immigrated here from Italy. My uncle Johnny Duke spent his life offering second chances to the kids around Bellevue Square. Personally, I've been rescuing neighborhood businesses and restoring historic buildings for decades. But that's been our story here in our town since it was founded by people looking for a new start. Hartford is a city of second chances, and it needs one now, with new leadership and a new vision for what we can become. It's time to break from politics as usual and empower the people to shape our communities and our future. I want Hartford to become that city that everyone wants to call home, from the staff at City Hall to each resident in each neighborhood. I love Hartford, and I hope to inspire that deep love in others. I'm John Gale, and I'm asking for your vote.
Mr. Cruz.
MLK said, I am not interested in power for power's sake, but interested in power that is moral, that is right, and that is good. I fell in love with the city at a very young age. I have always been proud of where I come from. I truly believe that my candidacy is the right thing to do, so that I may do right for the brothers and sisters of our city. Thank you.
Mr. Bronin.
To really see what Hartford is capable of, you don't have to look any farther than the walls of this place where we are right now. The Hartford Public Library, I think, to me, represents everything that this city can be and everything great. In this, you've got young people striving to learn. You've got older people learning to read. You've got teenagers up in the U Media Lab who are doing unbelievably creative things. And our job, whoever you choose, is to do what we can to build a city that lets them realize that opportunity. I'm glad that a part of North Hartford was designated a federal promise zone, and I give credit to a whole bunch of people who worked together to make that happen. But a promise zone is just an opportunity. And we've had a lot of promises in Hartford for a lot of years. The question tonight isn't who can make the best promise or who can offer the best ideas. The question is who up here is going to be the best positioned to turn those ideas into action. That's what we've been missing, and that's what we need.
Mr. Segarra. Yes, you may begin.
And I believe that the best person to represent this community is myself. I believe that a person like myself who has connections to this city for 40 years, not someone who grew up in Greenwich, Connecticut, like the person to my left, a person who has been around a sufficient number of times. I don't come from privilege. I come from hard work, hard struggles, and hard work. I know that every problem in this city is not yet solved. I know that all of the challenges are not yet complete. But please, look back 5 years. 5 years ago. Look back where we were and where we are today. And again, not all the challenges, not all the work that needs to be done has been done, but I think that some of my opponents are running on just a very short list of things that I have not been able to accomplish, but I'm not giving any credit for the significant change and movement forward that this city is having. Thank you so much. I want your vote and I want your confidence. Thank you.
We have come to the close, so you may all now applaud for the candidates.
Real quick, Greater Hartford Young Dems be able to do something like this again. See our people at the door. Give $5, give $10. It's going to go a really long way in making sure that our political action group can keep providing.